In this clip, I'd like to give just a brief overview of the repertoire which I'm proposing. So taking the starting position d4, d5, c4, e6. To start with, we'll take the move order with knight c3. Here black has two potential responses with knight f6 or bishop e7. I'm suggesting knight f6, which can lead to the exchange variation after takes, bishop g5, and here I've suggested the move c6 with the intention of meeting e3 with bishop f5, playing this endgame after queen f3, bishop g6, and general exchanges on f6. So we talk about that, and also the intention of meeting queen c2 with bishop e7, e3, knight d7, bishop d3, h6, bishop h4, and knight h5, which is quite a popular and an extremely solid variation for black. White's alternatives here have also been discussed, so to start with, we can talk about knight f3, bishop e7, and bishop f4. This leads to very important, very topical positions, black castles. I've talked about the deviations here, for instance, a3 and rook c1. e3 is the main move when I've suggested knight b d7, with the basic idea of playing c5 and playing isolated queen's pawn positions with the knight on c5. This is a very dynamic approach for black. It's been upheld by a number of top players, and at the moment seems to be the main response to the bishop f4 systems, and I have a lot of faith in black's chances there. Bishop g5 is the main move for white, the traditional main line. I'm suggesting that bishop g5 is met by h6, so not castling first. And here I've spent some time looking at the positions after bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. This leads to important variations. White has various tries based on queen d2, queen c2, queen b3. The main line is e3, after which black castles, and here again I've discussed the various queen moves. I've discussed rook c1. Overall there's a lot of interesting material there, but black is very solid in all of those variations. The main question for black, of course, is after bishop h4, castles, and e3, what to do in this position. I should mention as well that I talk about variations where white delays or omits knight f3, where he delays or omits e3. It's not such a problem given our repertoire choice. Our repertoire choice here is knight to e4. The Lasker variation, one of the most solid and well-respected moves in modern chess. White's choice is quite limited here. Bishop g3, which I don't think I'd discuss in any detail, can simply be met by bishop to b4 with excellent play. Black can follow up with c5. So by far the most popular response is bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and white is now limited to three main responses. C takes d5 is one of those responses, but there's been a lot of important analytical work done by Anand to show that the variation after take on d5, queen b3, rook d8, c4, and now bishop e6, this pawn sacrifice is quite favourable for black, and this has, to a certain extent at least I believe, closed the line with c takes d5. Queen c2 is another alternative when I've suggested simply taking on c4. Here you'll see that black plays very quickly with b6, bishop b7 and c5. c5 can't be stopped in the variations. There are certain tactical points behind that, but ultimately black has no difficulty equalizing in this line. It was demonstrated several times by Yakovenko a number of years ago, and nobody's upset the analysis since then. Rook c1 is the main line and one of the most important variations in modern chess. I've suggested going in for c6, bishop d3 takes, knight d7. You can also take on c3 first. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference. In this position, I've analysed c takes d5. I've also analysed the sharp variations which white can play with g4 and h4. And after castles, which is the main variation, pawn takes c4, bishop takes c4. Black has two principal approaches here. One is e5 and one is b6 and bishop b7, and that's been my recommendation. Overall, I hope that it's relatively complete. An opening which I've had to regard as separate for the purposes of this DVD is the Catalan variation with knight f3 and g3. That can be reached by a variety of move orders, and clearly black has a number of good responses there. If you want to play a simple classical response, then bishop e7 and castles can't be bad. But overall, I hope to have provided you with, I think, a pretty strong and certainly extremely solid repertoire with black across all of the main variations which I think you might face. I also hope to have flagged additional alternatives in case you want to supplement or vary your repertoire in years to come.